Good morning, dear students. Welcome to Diksha Online. Today we are going to discuss the synopsis and questions in chemical kinetics and radioactivity. So, according to kinetics, chemical kinetics deals with the rates of chemical reaction and mechanism of the chemical reaction. And the rate of chemical reaction is the change in the concentration of either reactants or products with respect to time. So, the general expression is plus or minus dC by dt. Here plus indicates the increase in concentration of products, minus indicates the decrease in the concentration of reactants. Differential rate of a reaction. It is a small change in the concentration of reactant or product in a small time interval dt. So dC by dt again it is differential rate. So if I take a reaction A plus 2B gives rise to 3C plus 2D, I can write the rate as minus of dA by dt, and the stoichiometric coefficient will come as reciprocal here. So minus half of dB by dt is equal to plus 1 by 3 dC by dt is equal to plus half d of d by dt. Instantaneous and average rate. Instantaneous rate of a reaction is the rate of reaction at a given instant of time. But average rate of reaction is the total change in the concentration of reactant in the total time taken. So average rate I can write delta C by delta T, and instantaneous rate as we wrote earlier dC by dt. The graphical representation of the instantaneous and average rate. So here we can see the exponential decrease is happening in the concentration of the reactant. So at that particular point, if I want to find out, I have to draw a tangent and take the slope of the tangent, gets me instantaneous rate. In case of average rate, this is the initial concentration of the reactant. This is the concentration at that particular time interval. So total change concentration is Y1 minus Y2 and 0 minus X2. So in that total time interval X2, how much of concentration has changed? That will give me the average rate. Elementary and complex reaction. Elementary reaction or the reaction in which it takes place in one single step. It is also known as concerted reaction mechanism. And complex reactions are the reactions which takes place in more than one step, and always in complex reaction or multi-step reaction, the slow step will determine the rate of the reaction, which is called as rate determining step. Molecularity of a reaction. The number of molecules of the reactants or any species which will collide with each other to form the products is known as molecularity. For an elementary reaction, the molecularity is just the total number of reactants taking part in the reaction as given by balanced chemical equation. In a complex reaction which is having more than one step, each and every step will have its own molecularity. Order of a reaction. It is a sum of the powers of the concentration terms of reactants raised in an experimentally determined rate equation or rate law. The rate law of the reaction is basically relation between the rate of reaction and the concentration of the reactants. In case of elementary reaction, the order and molecularity will always be equal because it is happening in one step. In a complex reaction, we take the rate determining step into reference and define the order for the reaction as a whole, not for individual steps. The difference between order and molecularity, as we define, it is a number of molecules of species involved in collision to form the products. In case of order, it is sum of the powers of concentration terms in an experimental determined rate law. So one more point here, molecularity is always a whole number. It cannot be fraction, it cannot be zero. But order can be a whole number, can be fraction, it can be even equal to zero. We have zero order reaction also. And molecularity is very much theoretical concept and order is an experimental concept. half-life period. It is a time taken by the reaction to reduce the concentration of the reactant to half of its initial value. The half-life of reaction will depend upon the initial concentration of the reactant based on the order of the reaction. So in case of some order, the rate is going to be dependent on initial concentration of the reactant. So let us take zero order reaction. So what is zero order reaction? The reactions whose rate is independent of concentration of the reactant are known as zero order reaction. Example, the decomposition of hydrogen iodide on the surface of gold or photochemical combination of hydrogen and chlorine. So the kinetics of the zero order reaction, I can get the rate constant K is equal to x by T, and half-life of the zero order reaction is always given by A by 2K. We can see here very much T half is proportional to A, initial concentration. So T half is directly proportional to initial concentration. As the amount of concentration taken increases, half-life increases. The graphs of zero order reaction, we can see very clearly. The concentration of the reactant versus time is always a linear graph, and slope will give us the rate constant K. So x is equal to KT. So if I take rate of reaction always remain constant because independent of concentration. So rate is going to be a parallel line to the concentration axis. First order reaction. The reaction whose rate is directly proportional to first power of concentration of the reactant is called as first order reaction. The dissociation of hydrogen peroxide is an example for that, and the K expression we can write here. K is equal to 2.303 by T into log of A by A minus X, where A is the initial concentration and A minus X is the concentration of reactant at any time T, and T half is 0.693 by K, and we can see T half is independent of initial concentration. The graphs of first order reaction. So it is an exponential decrease of the concentration with respect to time, but if you plot log of A versus time, it's going to be a straight line with the negative slope. So slope will give us the rate constant K. Pseudo first order reaction. So a reaction which is following a different order, maybe second or third or 2.5, whatever, the higher order reactions can be converted to first order by taking all the reactants in large excess, but except one reactant. So except one reactant, everything is taken in large excess, so we can convert that into first order reaction. The rate depends upon the concentration of reactant which is taken in lesser amount, because for the large excess one, the change in the concentration with respect to time becomes very negligible. So the best example is acid hydrolysis of an ester or inversion of cane sugar catalyzed by an acid. The acid hydrolysis of an ester. So acid hydrolysis of an ester is given by, if I take methyl acetate as the ester, it gives acetic acid and methanol as a product. The reaction is studied by titrating the known volume of reaction mixture against standard NaOH, that is alkali, at different intervals of time. So with time, the amount of acetic acid formed increases and the volume of NaOH consumed also increases. At V0, it is only the HCl present in the reaction mixture, and Vt is the amount of HCl plus the amount of acetic acid formed at different intervals of time, and V infinity is the acetic acid formed at the end of the reaction, or I can say methyl acetate present in the beginning. So V infinity minus V0 corresponds to initial concentration, and Vt minus V0 corresponds to X. If I subtract A minus A and X, I get V infinity minus Vt as A minus X. So K is equal to 2.303 by T into log of V infinity minus V0 by V infinity minus Vt. Dissociation of hydrogen peroxide. This can be studied in two ways. The first one is studied by measuring the volume of oxygen liberated at different intervals of time. So at 0 time there is no volume, so V0 is 0. Same equation, if I remove V0 I get the rate constant as 2.303 by T into log of V infinity by V infinity minus Vt. So volume of oxygen at time t is Vt, volume of oxygen at infinite time is V infinity. The same reaction can also be studied by titrating a definite volume of the reaction mixture with KMnO4. In that case, V infinity is 0 because at the end of the reaction, no H2O2 will be left. There is nothing to react with KMnO4. So KMnO4 is reacting with the H2O2 present in the given reaction mixture. At 0 time, it is going to be A. At any time t, it is going to be A minus X. So directly it is K is equal to 2.303 by T into V naught by Vt. So volume of KMnO4 consumed at time t is equal to 0 is V0 and this will be Vt. Optical rotation method. So all of us know the inversion of cane sugar is a process where the dextrorotatory reactant becomes a levorotatory product. So sucrose is dextrorotatory, glucose and fructose are the products. Glucose is dextro but fructose is levo. The magnitude of rotation of fructose is more than glucose, so it becomes levorotatory. So it is studied by measuring the specific rotation of the reaction mixture at different intervals of time. At 0 time it is R0, at any time t it is RT, and at infinite time it is R infinity. So K is given by 2.303 by T into log of R0 minus R infinity by RT minus R infinity, or we can write even R infinity minus R0 by R infinity minus RT, both are same. Pressure change method. In this particular type, the gaseous phase reaction is taken. If I take an example, A giving rise to B plus C, let the initial pressure of A be P, so this will be 0 and 0. At any time t, X atmosphere or X millimeters of A is decomposed to product, so remaining will be P minus X, product will be X and X. At infinite time the ray will become 0, so entire P has been decomposed, so it becomes X, P and P for B and C. So the equation is K is equal to 2.303 by T into log of P by P minus X. So to calculate X and P value, we need the total pressure of the reacting mixture at a time t and at infinite time. So knowing the pressure given at any time t and the total final pressure at the end of the reaction, we can calculate P and X. So suppose I take the same example, A giving rise to P plus C. We had here P0, 0, P minus X, X and X, and 0 P, P. So let us say P total at t equals infinity is say some m. So this is nothing but 2p. So 2p is equal to m. Then I can get p value as m by 2. Okay. Then p total at t is equal to t as a n. Now what is the p total at any time t? P minus x plus x plus x, 1x get cancelled, it is become p plus x is equal to n. I know what p as m by 2, so therefore m by 2 plus x is equal to n. So I know n, I know m, I can calculate x. Once I get p and x, I can substitute in the equation to get the rate constant k. Effect of temperature on reaction rates. The rate of a chemical reaction always increases with increase in temperature. There is no exception for this. every chemical reaction show a positive dependency on rate with respect to temperature. The ratio of rate constant of the reaction at two different temperatures differing by 10 Kelvin is known as temperature coefficient. For most of the reaction, the temperature coefficient value will lie between 2 and 3. So temperature coefficient is given by K at T plus 10 divided by K at T. The Arrhenius equation. Arrhenius equation is given by K is equal to A into e to the power of minus EA by RT, where K is rate constant, A is called as Arrhenius factor or pre-exponential factor or even collision factor. EA is called as energy of activation and T is absolute temperature, R is gas constant. So activation energy is the minimum excess energy that should be acquired by the reactant molecules in order to reach the threshold energy level and form the products. The Arrhenius equation logarithmic form. So you can say log K, if I take logarithm on both sides for the equation, K is equal to A into e to the power minus EA by RT. You take log for this, I get this expression. This of the form say Y is equal to, this is mx plus c. So if I plot a graph of log k versus 1 by t, I get a straight line with a negative slope, and slope is equal to EA by 2.303 r, and intercept is nothing but log a. So energy profile diagram for exothermic and endothermic reaction. So in any reaction, reactant will never convert directly into products. So if you take the normal energy of the reactant, this is normal energy of the reactant, this is the threshold energy level. So the reactant has to acquire this minimum energy, and this will be the energy of activation, and then form the product. So this is exothermic, this is energy of the reactant which is higher, energy of the product which is at lower level. The difference between the two is enthalpy change of the reaction. In case of endothermic, the energy of the reactant is this, product is this, and the threshold energy will be this. So this is the delta H of the reaction, and this will be energy of activation. So we can clearly see the delta H is a part of energy of activation. So remember, for endothermic reaction, the minimum value of EA is always greater than delta H. The minimum value for EA will be greater than delta H of the reaction. Calculation of energy of activation using the formula method. If I get the rate constant at two different temperatures, I can directly use the same formula. So log of K2 by K1 is equal to EA by 2.303 R into T2 minus T1 by T1 T2. So using the formula, I can get the rate energy of activation. Effect of catalyst on the rate of reaction. The catalyst will make a reaction to follow a different path where activation energy is lesser. The graph you can see this higher one for uncatalyzed reaction, the lower one is for catalyzed reaction. So the lower one catalyzed reaction, this is the energy of activation. For uncatalyzed, this is the energy of activation. So EA for uncatalyzed is always higher compared to EA for catalyzed. This is the energy of the reactant, this is energy of the product. It is given for endothermic in this particular case. So the effect of catalyst, I can calculate how much increase in the rate the catalyst can do. It can be done by this formula. Log K2 by K1 is equal to EA1 minus EA2. EA1 is for uncatalyzed reaction, EA2 is for catalyzed reaction. K2 is the rate constant for catalyzed reaction, K1 is a rate constant for uncatalyzed reaction. So I can, if I know EA1 and EA2, I can get K2 by K1. Suppose if I take the catalyzed reaction and uncatalyzed reaction takes place at the same rate, therefore the temperature has to be different. Then I can write EA1 by T1 is equal to EA2 by T2. Using this expression, I can find out the temperature at which the catalyzed reaction can follow the same rate as that of uncatalyzed reaction at a different temperature T1. Parallel reaction. So parallel reaction is a reaction where a reactant decomposes simultaneously to give more than one product but with different paths. So parallel reaction is a reaction where one reactant simultaneously give more than one product, we gives more than one product through different path. So example is like in organic chemistry, we get many reaction, formation of ortho and para products during electrophilic aromatic substitution and formation of nucleophilic substitution product and elimination product by an alkyl halide during either through SN1 and E1 or SN2 and E2 mechanisms. These are nothing but parallel reactions. What is the kinetics of parallel reaction? If I take a reactant A, gives rise to B and C and rate constant is K1 and K2. The overall rate constant, it is missing here, it's not appearing, I'll write it here. K is equal to K1 plus K2. The overall rate constant of the reaction is equal to K1 plus K2. If I know K1 and K2, I can find out the fractional yield of B. The percentage yield or fractional yield of B will be nothing but K1 divided by K1 plus K2. For C, K2 by K1 plus K2. So these are the expression for finding out the fractional yield of B and C. The graph for parallel reaction. So we can see all are considered to be first order. So concentration of A decreases exponentially from here to here. So this is a decrease in the concentration of A, and B and C exponentially increase with time. That is a graph for parallel reaction. Consecutive reaction. Consecutive reaction is like A giving rise to B, further B giving rise to C. The rate constants are K1 and K2 and both are first order. If you take the graphical representation of this reaction, so concentration of A from top here decreases exponentially almost touching the x-axis. See, with initial point, if I take A concentration is maximum, so rate of formation of B will be higher compared to rate of disappearance of B. So that's why we can see clearly here the concentration of B increases, reaches a maximum and then start decreasing like this. This is for B, this is for A, and C will be continuously increases with time. This is the graph for consecutive reaction. So at this particular point of time, the concentration of B will be maximum, which is called as B max, and the time corresponding to that will be T max. So the kinetics of the consecutive reaction, if I consider, we have three relations. So we know that d of A by dt, the rate of change of concentration of A is proportional to K1 into A. But for B, it is coming from A and it is disintegrating to C. So K1A minus K2B is the change of concentration of B with time, and d of C by dt is nothing but K2 into B. Now the concentration of B at any instant of time can be derived with this formula. K1 A naught is the initial concentration what I have taken, K2 minus K1 into e to the power of minus K1T minus e to the power of minus K2T. And the maximum time what we discussed, T max is equal to 2.303 by K2 minus K1 into log of K2 by K1. These are the formulae which you can remember. Usually problems may not come from this. It may be conceptual question can be asked on this. And this type of consecutive reactions are very common in radioactive disintegration process. Going to radioactivity. It is a phenomena in which a substance emit radiation spontaneously. So substance emit radiations spontaneously. The different types of radiations emitted are alpha, beta and gamma rays. What is the reason for radioactivity? The reason for radioactivity is instability of the nucleus. So depends upon the stability of the nucleus depends upon number of neutrons and protons. So we have N by P ratio. So N by P ratio, if you plot a graph of neutrons versus protons, initially N by P is equal to 1 for lighter nuclei. As the number of protons increases in the nucleus, the number of neutrons will be more than the number of protons to maintain the repulsive forces between the protons. So number of neutrons predominate over number of protons, and N by P value will be more than 1. So if you draw a graph of N versus P, we see a stability belt. So initially it is 1 here, then stability belt is this. So whichever nucleus will come in that stability belt, they will not be radioactive. So if the nucleus is lying either to the right or to the left of the stability belt, they show radioactivity. So how does the radioactivity takes place? It can happen in different ways. Alpha decay. Alpha decay means the nucleus will emit an alpha particle. Alpha particle is nothing but helium nucleus 4 and 2. So the atomic number or the charge will be decreased by 2 units and the mass number decreased by 4 units. And during alpha decay, N by P value increases. Beta decay. Beta decay is a process where radioactive element emit electron from the nucleus. So we must be surprised why nucleus can emit a electron. Electron is not there in the nucleus. So during this process, a neutron will convert into proton and electron. The proton part will be retained in the nucleus. Electron part will be emitted out. So in this process, a neutron is converting into proton. So number of neutron decreases, number of proton increases, so N by P value decreases. Gamma decay. After emitting alpha or beta particles from the nucleus, there will be instability found in the nucleus. This is accompanied always with emission of gamma rays. Gamma rays is nothing but source of energy. It is losing the energy and there is no particle involved in it. So there is no change in atomic number or mass number. So gamma radiations are always accompanied along with alpha and beta radiations. Then electron capture is one more type. The nucleus will capture one electron from the first orbit of the atom. So when the electron capture takes place, the electron enters into the nucleus, it will neutralize a proton and convert that into a neutron. So number of neutron increases, number of proton decreases, so N by P ratio increases. Activity of a radioactive sample. So how to define activity of a radioactivity sample? So activity is nothing but product of the decay constant, just like rate constant for chemical reaction, decay constant, and instead of taking the concentration here, we take the number of nuclei. Because radioactivity is a completely nuclear phenomena, it does not depend upon the concentration of the substance, it depends on the number of radioactive nuclei present in the given sample. So it is always expressed in disintegration per second or disintegration per minute. The unit, very commonly used unit for radioactivity is Curie, and 1 Curie is equal to 3.7 into 10 power 10 dps. 3.7 10 power 10 disintegration per second is a value of 1 Curie. Radioactivity is actually a first order reaction. So how we can relate the first order kinetics to radioactivity? So if I take the radioactive disintegration, the number of nuclei in the beginning is nothing but N naught. It is similar to A. number of nuclei at any instant of time is n. It is nothing but same as a minus x, and k in rate constant is same as disintegration constant in case of radioactive concept. So lambda is equal to 2.303 by t into log of n naught by n, and t half is again same as 0.693 by lambda. So all the equations of first order reaction kinetics is applicable for radioactivity. But very important, the radioactive disintegration is not affected by temperature, as it is a nuclear phenomena. In case of chemical reaction, the reaction is due to molecular collisions. So if they increase the temperature, the kinetic energy of the molecule increases, the energy of the molecule increases, the speed with which the molecules traveling will increases, and also number of collision increases. Thereby reaction rate goes on increasing with increasing temperature. But in case of radioactivity, it is a nuclear phenomena. It is emission of radiation from the nucleus. There is no collision required for the nuclear phenomena. Even at 0 degrees Celsius, it will continue to emit radiation. Even at 1000 degrees Celsius also, it will emit the radiation in the same way. So absolutely no effect of temperature, and Arrhenius equation is totally not applicable for concept of radioactivity. There is no energy of activation concept for radioactive disintegration. So if you take the elements decomposing at earth, is going to be the same rate when the same element going to decompose even in sun. There are some applications of radioactivity. So one of them is very important, that is C14 dating. The C14 dating is used to assign the age for fossil samples. So it is using the C14 dating technique. So C14 is an isotope which is a beta emitter. The half-life of C14 is approximately around 5700 years. So to reduce 1 gram of carbon 14 isotope to half gram of carbon 14 isotope, we require 5700 years. The activity of a fresh sample or a living sample is around 14 dpm. So what happens is, as long as the organism is living, there will be intake of carbon and expelling of carbon. So in the body, the ratio between C14 and C12 will remain same. The activity of C14 content in a living tissue or living sample, maybe plant or animal, whatever, is going to be around 14 disintegration per minute. Once the organism dies, there is no more intake of C14. Whatever amount of C14 present in the dead sample will start decaying. So every 5700 years, it becomes half of the initial value. So if I find out the activity of the fossil sample using the equation, so K is nothing but 0.693 by lambda. Lambda is known. So T half is known for me. So T half is equal to 2.303, sorry, it's 0.693 by T half here, not lambda, sorry. This is T half. So I know T half has 5700 years, and I can calculate T because I know the activity of the fossil sample, I know the activity of the fresh sample, I know half-life, so I can find out the age of the fossil sample. Very similarly, we do what is called as rock dating. Rock dating is for finding the age of the rock, or even age of the earth can be estimated. The only concept what we use here is the percentage of uranium and the lead in the present sample of rock is determined. We assume that whatever lead present in the rock is coming only due to disintegration of uranium. So whatever the lead is present, that many lead were used to be uranium atoms at the zero time. So using that concept, we can estimate the age of the rock. So the half-life of uranium is around 1.3 into 10 power 9 years. Very huge value. So we can find out when the earth was formed, the rocks will have uranium. Now if I find out in the same rock uranium and lead sample analysis, if I convert all the lead number of moles of lead into number of moles of uranium, so how much time it has taken, I can easily find out that estimate when the earth was formed. So age of earth, age of rocks can be estimated by this rock dating. Binding energy and mass defect. So if I take the total mass of the nucleons in the nucleus, so suppose I take carbon there are 6 protons and 6 neutrons. Mass of each proton, each neutron we know. If I multiply 6 into mass of proton plus 6 into mass of neutron, take the sum, compare with the actual atomic mass of carbon 12 isotope, the actual mass is less than that of the total mass of the nucleon. So where this mass has gone, that is called as mass defect. So whatever the mass defect, that the total number of nucleons minus actual mass of the nucleus will give you mass defect. This mass defect has converted into energy which is spent, and that particular energy used to hold all the nucleons together in the nucleus. So in conversion, 1 AMU is equal to 931.5 mega electron volts. So whatever the defect which is there in the mass, if I multiply by that 931.5 MeV, I can get the total binding energy of the entire nucleus. So these are the some of the synopsis points what I thought I'll discuss. We'll move on to the examples. Example 1. The rate constant of the decomposition of ethylene oxide into methane and carbon monoxide is given by this equation. We have to find out the energy of activation and the value of rate constant at 670 Kelvin. We'll take the solution. If you see the equation given, it is log K equals 14.34 minus 1.25 10 power 4 divided by T. If you write the equation standard form, log K equals log A minus EA by 2.303 RT. Comparing the two equations, what I'll get? Log A is 14.34, which is not required as such, and EA by 2.303 R is equal to 1.25 10 power 4. So EA is equal to 1.25 into 10 power 4 into 2.303. R is 8.314. If you simplify this, I'll get this as 239.3 kilojoules per mole. This is the first part, calculation of energy of activation. The second part, we have to calculate the rate constant at 670 Kelvin. I'll go to the next slide. So again, I'll take the same equation, log K equals 14.34 minus 1.25 10 power 4. Instead of T, I'll put 670. So this becomes 14.34 minus, if I take 1.25 10 power 4 divided by 670, it comes to 18.65. So difference will be minus 4.331. So I can take it as 3. So log K is equal to minus 4.3, or K is equal to anti-log of minus 4.3, or it is equal to anti-log of 5 bar 0.7. So we know that 0.6990 is log 5. So I can write this K is equal to approximately 5 into 10 power minus 5. This is the approximate answer. So we'll go to the options. So activation energy is 239.3 and The K value is 4.8 10 power 4.8 10 power minus 5. So 5 in 10 power minus 5 is the answer expected. It is becoming 4.8 10 power minus 5. The second problem, the following gaseous reaction is given. 2x gives rise to 3y plus 2z. So data is given here. What is the order of the reaction and what is the total pressure when the partial pressure of the compound X is 700 millimeters? Now we can see from the data time 0 800, time 100 it has become half, that is 400. Again another 100 minutes it is again become half of it. That means 800 to 400 taking 100 minutes, 400 to 200 also taking 200 minutes. So half life is remaining constant. So T half is constant. That means it is first order. So by looking at the data only we can say order of the reaction. So the second part, we have to find the total pressure when partial pressure of X is 700. We'll go to that solution. The equation is 2x gives rise to 3y plus 2z. Initially it is 800. This is 0, this is 0. So at time t, right? So 800 minus 2x if I take, this will be 3x, this will be 2x. What is given? This is going to be equal to 700. 800 minus 2x is the partial pressure of x, which is equal to 700. So 2x is equal to 100, x is equal to 50. So total pressure, if I take, total pressure is equal to 800 minus 2x plus 3x plus 2x. So 2x cancel, it is 800 plus 3x. X is 50, so it becomes 950 millimeter. That is the answer for the second part of the question. So we'll go to the answer. So order is 1 and pressure is 950 millimeters. We'll go to example 3. Carefully look at this problem. It's a previous IIT question. Some pH3 phosphine is introduced into a flask at temperature 600, not required for calculation. Very importantly, containing one inert gas already. The pH3 start decomposing into P4 and hydrogen, and the reaction goes to completion. The total pressure is given as a function of time. Assuming the reaction follow first order, calculate the rate constant. You have to get the K value. So it's given, this is at 0 actually, this is 60, this is 120, this is infinity. So it is missing by one tab. So this is the data what is given to me. So we'll go to the solution. So what is the equation? pH3, I'll take inert gas as I, gives P4 plus 6H2. So I is just there. I have to take I for everything. It is not. It is contributing only for the total pressure. It is not taking part in the reaction. Balance the P and H part. So 4 pH3 and 6H2. It's already balanced. Now, if I take T equals 0, this is, let us say it is P. This is constant Pi. This is 0. This is 0. So T is equal to say 60 minutes or 60 seconds, whatever time given. This is, we call it as P minus X. This will remain Pi only. this becomes 4 and 1, so x by 4, and this will be 6x by 4. And at t equals infinity, this becomes 0, this will remain pi, this is p by 4, and this is 6p by 4. Now the data is given, according to that we have to go through. So first initial 0 time pressure is given. So P plus Pi in that at t is equal to 0, P plus Pi is equal to 262.4. Okay, and at t equals infinity, P by 4 plus 6P by 4 plus Pi is equal to 276.4. This is the first set of data. The t is equal to 0 and t is equal to infinity I have taken. So from this I can calculate both P as well as Pi. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide for that. So what we had, we subtract one from the other, Pi get cancelled, I get 1 by 4p plus 6p by 4 minus p is equal to 14. So if I calculate this, I'll get p as 18.6 mm. Therefore, pi is going to be much more, 243.8 mm. So by using the two values, two equations, we can get pi and p. Once I get pi and p, I have to put that in the equation at t is equal to 60. So at t equals 60, what is the total pressure? So it is going to be P minus X plus Pi is also there, plus X by 4 plus 6X by 4, that is equal to 272.9. So if you simplify, I know Pi, I know P, I will take it out that side. So if I take Pi outside, I get P minus X plus X by 4 plus 6X by 4 is equal to 272.9 minus 243.8. This comes to 29.1. P also I can take out 18.6. So if I take minus X plus X by 4 plus 6X by 4 is equal to 29.1 minus 18.6. This comes to 10.5. So this 10.5, this is equal to 3x by 4. So if I take 4, this becomes 4x plus 6x. 6 plus 1, 7, 7 minus 4, 3x by 4 is equal to 10.5. So x I can get this as 14. Now I know what is P, I know what is X. I can directly apply in the rate constant. So what happens to the rate constant? Rate constant K is equal to 2.303 by 60 into log of P by P minus X. What is the value? So 2.303 by 60 into log of 18.6 by 18.6 minus 14, so it is 4.6. If you simplify this, I get 2.32 10 power minus 2 per second. This is the value of rate constant. It's a lengthy calculation, so you have to carefully see the data and get the proper answer. We'll go to the solution, the options. So answer is 2.32 10 power minus 2 is missing here, 10 power minus 2 per second. Example 4. A hydrogenation reaction is carried out at 500 Kelvin. If the same reaction is carried out in presence of a catalyst at the same rate, the temperature required is 400 Kelvin. Calculate the activation energy of the reaction if the catalyst lowers the activation energy by 20 kilojoules per mole. So this is a reaction based on the catalyst part. So EA1 by T1 is equal to EA2 by T2. That is the formula we have to use because rate is same and temperature are different. So I'll write the solution. So EA1 for uncatalyzed reaction, T1 for uncatalyzed reaction is equal to EA2 by T2. And we know that EA2 catalyzed reaction is EA1 minus 20. It is reducing the activation energy by 20 kilojoules per mole. Substitute that. So EA1 by 500 is equal to EA1 minus 20 by 400. So 0 cancels. Cross multiply 4 EA1 is equal to 5 EA1 minus 5 into 20 is 100. So 100 goes to left, 4A comes to right. So 5 minus 4 is 1. So EA1 is equal to 100 kilojoules. That's the answer for this question. Simple. If you know the formula, if you don't know the formula, the question will be complicated. So the option is 100 kilojoules, which is nothing but C. You go to example 5. Suppose 50 bacteria are placed in a flask containing nutrients for the bacterial growth. The number of bacteria formed at different intervals of time is given below. So you have to find out the number of bacteria after 3 hours. So if you carefully observe 0 to 15, 100, 15 to 30, 100 become 200, 30 to 45, 200 become 400. So doubling the number of bacteria for every 15 minutes. So that 15 minutes in case of bacterial growth, similar to half-life or normal chemical reaction, is called as generation time. So generation time is the time required by the bacteria to double its number. Okay, so here the generation time is 15 minutes and they're asking for 3 hours. So how many generation time are over? So 3 hours is equal to 180 minutes. So 180 minutes is equal to 180 by 15. So 12 generation time. Same way as normal kinetics. So if n half-lives are over, the rate is the concentration decreased by 2 power n times. Here also the number of bacteria is increased by 2 power n times. So number of bacteria at 3 hours is equal to 2 power 12 into the initial number 50. So if you calculate this, you get this as 204,800. This is the number of bacteria after 3 hours. So if I go to the option is B, 208,400. I think 204,800, it is 208,400. This is correct. We'll go to example 6. This is a parallel path reaction. So A giving rise to B and C and rate constants are K1 and K2 and K1, K2 are given 6.93 10 power power is missing, 10 power minus 3. So in the equation it is missing, sorry, 10 power minus 3. This is 10 power minus 2. Okay, so 10 power minus 3, 10 power minus 2, K1 and K2. Starting with pure A at a pressure of 12 atmosphere, what will be the total pressure of products B and C after 100 seconds? Temperature and volume will remain constant. So we'll see the solution part. So we have total K. So total K equals K1 plus K2. So total K is equal to 6.93 plus 1.3 is 10 power minus 2. I'll write as 13.86 into 10 power minus 3. So total it becoming 20.79 into 10 power minus 3. This is the overall K for the reaction. Now we know A giving rise to B and separately giving rise to C. Initial pressure. This is 12 atmosphere, this is 0, this is 0. So if I say at time t equals 100 seconds or 100 minutes, whatever given, sum of A will go to B, sum of A will go to C. Let us say X going to B, Y going to C. So this will become 12 minus of X plus Y. This will be X, this will be Y. So they're asking for total pressure of the products B and C. I need to find out X plus Y. Okay. So before that, we use the overall rate constant and get the pressure of A at 100 seconds. I'll get 12 minus X plus Y. So easily I can get what is X plus Y. So first order rate constant K is equal to 2.303 by T log P A naught by PA. Okay, so K is equal to, that is 20.79, 10 power minus 3 is equal to 2.303 by 100 into log P naught is 12 atmosphere. I'll find out what is PA. So cross multiply this, I can write as 2.079 into 10 power 2 minus 2 into 100 is 10 power 2 divided by 2.303 is equal to log of 12 by PA. So this 10 power 2, 10 power minus 2 cancel, 2.079 by 2.303 comes to 0.902 is equal to log of 12 by PA. So anti-log of 0.902. So 12 by PA is equal to anti-log of 0.902, which is equal to 7.97. Approximately I can take it as 8. So what is PA equals 12 by 8. So it's going to be 1.5. So PA is what? 12 minus of X plus Y is equal to 1.5. So I can write X plus Y is equal to 10.5. So that is the answer. So option. So 10.5 is option D. Answer is D. Okay. Next example, example 7. For a gaseous reaction, A plus B giving rise to 2C. The rate law is given as R is equal to A to the power 1, B to the power 2. So overall it's a third order reaction. Which of the following statements are correct? So if I take the initial concentration of A is double of B, that means A, 2A and A. Okay. then half-life of the reaction will remain same throughout the reaction. So the order will not change. So order is going to be 3 still, though concentrations of A is double for B, the order is still not changing, dependency will be third order. So the half-life of the reaction cannot remain constant throughout the reaction. This is a wrong statement. Second, if A is taken in large excess, that means rate of reaction becomes independent of A. So then it becomes second order reaction, because B power 2 is there, A is independent, so B becomes 2, order becomes 2. If order is 2, second order reaction, we know that T half is proportional to 1 by A. If concentration of A increases, half-life decreases, or concentration of A decreases, half-life increases. So as reaction proceeds, the concentration of reactant A decreases, so half-life of a reaction increases as the reaction proceeds. This is a correct statement. We'll go to C and D option. In case of C, if I take B in large excess, what happens? The order of the reaction becomes 1. So half-life of a reaction will remain same throughout the reaction. It is not dependent on initial concentration, so it will remain same. This is also correct. And if both A and B are taken in equal concentration, both will reduce to half of its initial value in the same time interval, because entire reaction we define half-life. So at half-life period, all the reactant concentration will reduce to half of its initial value. So this statement is also correct. So answer should be B, C and D. B, C and D. Examples 8. Where the following statement is correct with respect to half-life period of a reaction. Same concept, half-life period. So it is proportional to initial concentration for zero order. So we defined this earlier also. T half for zero order is equal to A by 2K. So definitely it is directly proportional to initial concentration. Then in case of first order, half-life of first order and average life is just 1 by K. Half-life is 0.693 by K, and average life is 1 by K. So it's going to be 1.44 times as that of first order reaction. That's correct statement. The time taken for 75% completion is thrice the half-life of second order reaction. So we'll verify this. So we'll go to solution box. So second order rate constant K is equal to 1 by T into 1 by A minus X minus 1 by A. So T 75% means A minus X is equal to A by 4. 75% reacted, 25% remaining. And A is equal to A itself. So if I substitute that, so T75 is equal to 1 by K into 1 by A by 4 minus 1 by A. If you simplify this, 1 by K, this becomes 4 by A minus 1 by A. So this is equal to 3 by 4 minus 1 is 3, 3 by 4, 3 by A into K. So 3 by A K is equal to T 75. But we know T half is 1 by A K. So you can clearly see T 75 is 3 times the half-life. So option C is correct. So this is correct. This is correct. This is also correct. Now 99% of reaction takes place in 10th minute. The rate constant of the first order reaction is 0.693 per minute, so it is first order. So if I take the rate constant as 0.693, so K is equal to 0.693 per minute. So what is half-life? 0.693 by 0.693. So it is 1 minute. So we know that for a first order reaction, 99.9% is equal to 10 times T half. So 1 minute, so 10 into 1 is equal to 10th minute. So this option is also right. So answer should be A, B, C, D. So answer should be A, B, C, D. We'll go to the ninth question. Which of the following statement is correct for temperature dependence of exothermic reversible reaction? So forward reaction is exothermic, backward reaction is endothermic. See, if I take the rate constant of any reaction will not decrease with increase in temperature. So on increasing temperature, Kf increases, Kb decreases, which is wrong. On increasing temperature, both Kb and Kf increases is right, because rate constant, irrespective of whether the exothermic or endothermic reaction, the rate constant always increases. Then one more important point, for an endothermic reaction, the increase in the rate is more in a reversible reaction compared to increase in the rate for the exothermic direction. Okay, on increasing temperature, increase in Kb is backward, so forward is exothermic, backward is endothermic, so increase in Kb is more than increase in Kf, which is very correct. So Kf is forward exothermic, so increase in the rate of Kf will be less compared to increase in the value of Kb as temperature is increased. On increase in the temperature, both Kb and Kf will decrease, which is wrong. So answer is B and C. It's a conceptual question. B and C. Example 10. So this is a matrix match type of question. So order of the reaction and characteristics is also conceptual. We can make out here only. So first, zero order. So if I take P, Q, R as statements, half-life remain constant throughout. This is definitely match for first order. Second half-life is double of his first half-life. Just now we derived the 75% completion is 3 times the half-life for second order. So if one half-life is 50%, another 25% means second half-life, it consumes 2 more half-lives. Total become 3 half-lives. As a result, for a second order reaction, second half-life is always double the first half-life. So this is mapped to second order. And reaction gets completed in finite time. So this is possible only for zero order because it's a linear graph. So it's going to touch the x-axis when you plot a graph of concentration of reactant versus time. In all other reaction, it is an exponential curve. So concentration curve theoretically ends at only infinite time. Practically, it has to end at some point of time. But theoretical concept is first order, second order, all are exponential decrease that will not become zero at any point of time. So this will be mapped to zero order. And graph of log of rate versus log of concentration of A. In case of third order, rate is equal to K into A to the power 3. So if you plot a graph R versus this, so log of R is equal to log K plus 3 log concentration of A. So log A and log R you are plotting. So this is y is equal to mx plus c. Slope will be equal to 3 and intercept is equal to log of K. So this is mapped directly to S. Okay, so A for R, B for P, C for P, sorry, B for Q, C for P, and D for S. So A for R, B for Q, C for P, and D for S. Question number 11. The reaction 2NO plus 2H2 gives rise to N2 plus 2HO has been assigned to follow this mechanism. So 2NO giving rise to N2O2, it is a fast process. N2O2 plus H2 gives N2O plus H2O is slow process, and N2O plus H2 gives N2 plus 2 is fast process. So the rate constant for second step is given, the equilibrium constant for first step is given. We have to find the rate of reaction when the concentrations of NO and H2 are 0.5 molar each. Okay, we'll go to solution. These are the options, we'll come back to it later. So from RDS, that is a slow step, second step, from step 2, I can write rate is equal to K into concentration of N2O2, which is the intermediate, and H2 is the reactant. So I know the value of K, I know the value of H2 concentration, but I don't know N2O2. So from step 1, which is an equilibrium constant, K equilibrium is equal to N2O2 divided by NO whole square. So what is N2O2 concentration is equal to K equilibrium into concentration of NO to the power 2. Substitute this in the first equation. Let us say this is 2, this is 1. 2 in 1 will give me rate is equal to K into K equilibrium NO whole square into H2. So I know the K value, K equilibrium value, substitute that. So R is equal to K is given as 1.2 10 power minus 4. K equilibrium is given as 1.4 into 10 power minus 2. And concentrations of all of them is 0.5. So 0.5 whole cube I can write. So if you simplify this, R becomes equal to 2.1 10 power minus 7 mole per liter per minute. This is the answer. So 2.1 10 power minus 7. So we'll go to the options. Option A. Example 12. Two radioactive nuclei has a decay constant 10 lambda and 2 lambda. If initially they have same number of nuclei, the ratio of the number of nuclei of A and B will be equal to 1 by E after a time. So we need to go to the formula of radioactive disintegration. So for A, this is 10 lambda, and for B, it is 2 lambda. So I know general equation, lambda is equal to n naught into not lambda, n is equal to n naught e to the power of minus lambda t. So substitute that for A and B. So NA is equal to n naught A e to the power minus 10 lambda t. Same way, NB is equal to n naught b e to the power minus 2 lambda t. So divide Na by Nb. So Na by Nb is equal to n naught a e to the power minus 10 lambda t divided by n naught b e to the power minus 2 lambda t. So we know that n naught a by n naught b is 1 because initial number is same. Na by Nb is 1 by e. So I can write this as 1 by e is equal to, this is e to the power, this will go to numerator. So it becomes 2 lambda t minus 10 lambda t. So this is e power minus 1. So I can equate the powers now. So 2 lambda t minus 10 lambda t is equal to minus 1. So if I take lambda t here as a common factor, this is minus 8 lambda is equal to minus 1. T is equal to 1 by 8 lambda. So the time at which the ratio of concentration or ratio of number of nuclei becomes 1 by E is at 1 by 8 lambda. So the answer should be D. We'll go to example 13. The radioactive isotope P32, right, is used in a biological activity. So radioisotope P32 is in biochemical studies. A sample of P32 having an activity of 1000 times the detectable limit is used in an experiment. So the question is how long the experiment can run with this sample before reaching the non-detectable value, and half-life is given as 14.2 days. So initial activity is 1000 times the activity, and if the activity drops below 1, it cannot be detected. So with respect to detectable amount, it is 1000 times. If it is less than 1, it cannot be detected. So we'll go for a solution. The solution is, so T half is 14.2 days. So I can write K is equal to 0.693 by 14.2. So I know that K is equal to 2.30. I'll substitute in that. So 0.693 by 14.2 is equal to 2.303 by T into log 1000 is the initial activity and 1 is the final activity. So I can write 0.693 as 2.303 into log 2, that is 0.3 by 14.2. 2.303 by T log 1000 is 3. So 2.303 get cancelled. 0.3 and 3 will be 10 times. So T will be equal to 142 days. So 142 days we can run the experiment without any problem. After that the activity will be less, it cannot be detected. So the option is C with 142. Example 14. A sample of carbon dioxide, that is with C14, is mixed with ordinary carbon dioxide for experiment. So this diluted solution along with CO2 and normal CO2 and C14CO2, the 10 cc of the dilute solution or dilute gas should have an activity of 10 power 4 dpm. So what activity in microcurie of carbon required to prepare 60 liters of such diluted gas at 1 atmosphere and 273 Kelvin. So assuming that this whatever Cc given, that is also at 273 and 1 atmosphere. Okay, so we'll go to the solution. So we know that 10 cc is having an activity of 10 power 4 disintegration per minute. So if I want to calculate in Curie, I have to get it into disintegration per second. So this will be equal to 10 power 4 by 60 into TPS, that is disintegration per second. So 10 cc is this much. What is 60 liters? So that means 60,000 cc will be equal to how much? So if you calculate that, so 60,000 into 10 power 4 by 60 whole divided by 10. So 1, 2, 2 0 get cancelled. So 10 power 4 and 2 zeros, 6 and 6 get cancelled. It becomes 10 power 6 dps. This is the total activity what is required. So we know that 1 Curie equals 3.7 into 10 power 10 dps. So 1 microcurie is equal to 3.7 10 power 10. Micro is 10 power minus 6. This becomes 3.7 10 power 4 dps. Now this is the actual Curie, microcurie, and 10 power 6 is the actual dps required. So what is the activity of carbon we have to take? So if I use that, 10 power 6 dps divided by 3.7 into 10 power 4 dps. This is the number of microcurie. So if I take this will get cancelled. This is becoming 100 by 3.7. It is approximately 27 microcurie. So the answer is 27 microcurie of carbon required to prepare that 60 liters of CO2. If I go to the option, 27 microcurie, so it is B, option B. 15th example, which of the following statement is correct? The half-life of radioisotopes is independent of initial number of nuclei. So just like the first order rate equation, the half-life is independent of initial concentration. In radioactive disintegration also, it does not depend upon how much quantity of the nuclei we are taking. Any number of nuclei to reduce to half of its initial value, we require the same time. So the option A is correct. The half-life of radioisotopes decreases with increase in temperature. We discussed earlier, the radioactivity is a phenomena which does not depend upon temperature because it is a nuclear phenomena, doesn't require any molecular collisions. It doesn't depend upon the kinetic energy of the reactant, potential energy of reactant. It is direct elimination of the radiation from the nucleus. So it does not depend on temperature. Half-life will remain same irrespective of whatever temperature you are going to take. So option B is wrong. The half-life of C14 is different in CO2 when compared to that of glucose. So whether the carbon atom is in the form of carbon dioxide or glucose or methane or any other compound will not matter. It depends upon the only carbon nucleus. So the half-life of C14 will remain same in all compounds containing C14. So this is also wrong statement. And D, the half-life of U-235, U-238. So U-235 will have a different N by P ratio. U-238 will have a different N by P ratio. Definitely nuclear stabilities are different. Their half-life is going to be different. This is a right statement. So answer should be A and D. A and D. So thank you very much for the video watching. So these are the questions what I thought I'll discuss with you in the present topic. Thank you.